Hello learners. Today we are going to discuss about intelligence tests and aptitude. In our last class we had discussion about the intelligence and emotional intelligence and the theories of intelligence. Today we are going to discuss about the various tests. So in this block BPCC 103, there were 10 units and we have completed Unit 1, Personality and Individual Differences, Unit 2, Assessment of Personality, Unit 3, Concepts of Intelligence and Emotional Intelligence, Unit 4, Theories of Intelligence. And today we are going to discuss on Unit 5 and 6, Unit 5, Assessment of Intelligence, and Unit 6, Aptitude, Concept and Measurement. So let us see what we are going to discuss. We'll see what is intelligence test or test in general, history of assessment of intelligence, individual tests, group test, verbal and non-verbal test, culture fair test, and there are certain issues related in assessment of intelligence. So what are the learning objective? So you will know the history of intelligence tests, then essential properties of the test, individual versus group individual tests, and verbal and non-verbal tests, then culture fair test. So psychologists are unanimous about the nature of the intelligence. We all have seen in our last discussions. And assessment of intelligence is one of the highly debated and researched topic. As you have seen that in one of the definition of intelligence, it's mentioned that intelligence is what intelligence tests measures. Okay. A number of intelligence tests have been developed for educational achievement and recruitment. Intelligence testing has a long history. So from World War II, it has been seen in the practice. So assessment of intelligence started in 19th century. In 1838, Skudel, physician, he was a physician, introduced different degrees of mental retardation. Now it is called intellectual disability. Second, in 1837, established first school for mentally retarded children, and he introduced informal and non-verbal intelligence tests. The second form board, which we are still using in our clinical practice to assess the intellectual level of, especially for mentally retarded children. And Sir Francis Galton, you might have heard about the Galton whistle or bar. So he talked about the association of stimuli, its perception and judgment with the intelligence. So, but the first uh, structured intelligence tests was developed by Binet. In 1904, French government appointed the uh, job of identifying children with special needs. So French government appointed Alfred Binet. So what he do? He and his colleague Theodore Simon designed a test of intelligence that distinguished fast learners and slow learners in France. And they gave the concept of mental age. Mental age is a measure of person's intellectual development relative to people of his or her age group. And then chronological age, that is basically biological age. So we'll discuss about the Binet common test later on. And that time this test has 30 items and valid for children up to 3 to 11 years of age, and no precise method to calculate the total score was available that time. So then the revision of this scale came and advent of IQ came. In 1908, revision of their scale by Binet Simon, and many simple items were dropped and new items were added in that scale. And the test was standardized for the age group of 3 to 13 years of children. Then concept of mental age and chronological age was introduced. In 1911, revision of the Binet-Simon scale for the third time and extension up to the age of 16 years was done. And in 1912, William Stern given the concept of IQ. So IQ is equivalent to mental age uh, divided by chronological age into 100. So types of intelligence test. Intelligence based on mode of administration could be individual or group, can be administered in one-to-one setting or in a group of people. Where intelligence tests based on nature of the test item, like verbal, non-verbal, or performance. This like individual and group intelligence tests were very useful. In individual tests are used in clinical setup, whereas group intelligence tests are used in a school setup or industrial setup. So, in educational settings, scholastic aptitude testing were done. In occupational setting, the counseling and the personnel selection for that intelligence tests are used. In clinical setting, for identification and classification with intellectual disability, or to see the level of intellectual intelligence. Now, let us see this test one by one. Individual tests. As I told you, individual tests are very much helpful in clinical setting. So, in individual tests, Stanford Binet scale of intelligence. In India, we are using Binet Kamat test called VKT. And then Wechsler scales for intelligence, Kaufman battery for intelligence, and Das Naglieri cognitive assessment system. So we'll discuss in brief about these four tests because these are the like Binet and Wechsler's were the hallmark of the intelligence test. So Stanford Binet scale of intelligence. So Binet Simon scale 1905, 1908, 1911 was re-standardized on an American sample. These tests were developed on French sample, but later on they have standardized on American sample. The fifth version of the Stanford Binet scale, SP5 it was called, was released in 2003. The Stanford Binet fifth edition is basically called the Stanford Binet fifth edition of intelligence. It consists of 10 subtests for assessing the intellectual and cognitive abilities. It assesses five cognitive factors such as fluid reasoning, knowledge, quantitative reasoning, visual spatial processing, and working memory. And the mean and SD of each score, that is IQ and factor score, was equal to 100 into 15 respectively. It is used for children from age of 2 years to adult of 85 years. It has a strong validity and reliability. So we have in our country Binet Kamat test, which is very much used in our country, and this test is for the children up to years 3, and it goes up to the 22 years of the age. The items are available for the 22 years of the age. The ceiling age for this test is 16 years. Like if a person having 18 years of age, his chronological age will be considered as 16. So on the basis of this test, you can get mental age up to the 22 years, and so you can categorize the person mental retarded to a very superior category. So this test, Binet-Kamat test, is having uh, 6 items in each age group. For example, age 3 starts with 6 items. So each item, if the candidate pass on one item, it gives 2 month, 2 months of mental age. So one item is equivalent of 2 months. So later on, the items were having 4 months of mental age. So the test is administered on the children and adult. If the child fails on all the items, if the candidate fails on all the items, the test stops there. So here the job of the examiner is to find out the basal age and terminal age, and on that basis the MA is calculated and we get the IQ score. So this test is basically very much used in clinical because this is basically a verbal test, though there are some performance tasks are also involved, and this is very simple and easy to administer test in clinical setting. Another battery was Wechsler scale. David Wechsler has given the definition of intelligence, which we all know the more comprehensive and exhaustive definition. Like intelligence is an aggregate or global capacity of an individual to act purposefully, to think rationally, and to deal effectively with the environment. So the tests are based on those nations. So notions. Adult. So Wechsler has given first of all adult test because that time the Binet Simon test was only for children. So Wechsler adult intelligence scale was given called WAGE. Actually, Wechsler worked with the first name of this test was Wechsler Bellevue test. So later on the name of the test was changed and it was made Wechsler adult intelligence scale. So if the test was later developed on school age children, so it is called the Wechsler Intelligence Scale for Children WISC, and then it was developed for preschool children also. So it was called the Wechsler Preschool and Primary Scale of Intelligence WPPSI. They measure general intelligence and can also be used in psychiatric diagnosis. Because the quality of this test is to, there are some tests which are called whole test and some tests which are called non-whole test. So in chronic psychosis, due to psychotic illness or due to psychopathology, some of the functions they get affected. So patient's performance on those scales will be less, whereas some scales will have intact functions. So, for example, general fund of information or general knowledge, the function of this on this task is getting deteriorated due to chronicity of the psychiatric illness. So that way you can find out the pre-morbid personality also, like you can pre-morbid intelligence also. You can say that the person was having more IQ, but now due to psychotic illness, the performance is less. So Wechsler 1949 prepared the Wechsler Intelligence Scale for Children, WISC. This was for children of 6 to 16 years of age. Wechsler Preschool and Primary Scale of Intelligence given in 1967, and this was the intellectual assessment of 4 to 6.5 years old. Now it has been revised to assess the intelligence of children as a 2 years 6 months through 7 years 7 months. So Wechsler has given three scales of intelligence. First one was called WAISH, Wechsler Adult Intelligence Scale. Another was called WISC, Wechsler Intelligence Scale for Children. And third one was called Wechsler Preschool and Primary Scale of Intelligence, WPPSI. So Wechsler Bellevue Intelligence Scale, it was specifically for adults, added performance items to balance verbal items, reduced the emphasis on speed of performance, and perhaps replaced mental age with deviation of IQ. So initially this test was developed, then Wechsler uh, developed WAIS and WISC and WPPSI. So Wechsler invented a new age-relative formula, IQ, attend or actual score, expected mean score for age. So, like earlier test before Wechsler was based on mental age, whereas Wechsler has given deviation score. So it is basically the performance of a particular person, how much deviated from the population, and in deviation is in lower side or upper side. So Wessel prepared the norms and then compared the raw score with those norms. So Wessler assumed that IQ remains constant in spite of normal aging, even though the intellectual abilities might decline. In 1955, the Wessler level was revised into Wessler Adult Intelligence Scale. So now we have raised 4. It came in 2012. WISC 5 is published in 14, and WPPSI 4 it came in 12. So subtest of Wessler's scale. So Wessler's scale gives full scale IQ. There are two parts of this IQ: verbal IQ and performance IQ, called VIQ and PIQ. Then under verbal comprehension, then we verbal IQ is divided into two: verbal comprehension index and working memory index. So under verbal comprehensive index, vocabulary, similarities, information comprehension are there, whereas working memory index is arithmetic, digit, small letter number, sequencing are there. Whereas in performance IQ, there is a perceptual organization index and processing speed index. Under perceptual organization index, picture completion, block design, matrix reasoning were there, whereas in processing speed, digit symbol coding and symbol search are there. So it is basically called Wechsler's test is basically called a very exhaustive and it covers almost all age range of the population because it starts with age 2 half and it covers adults. So let us see the what is group test. A group test is one that can be administered to more than one person at the same time. So that is group test. First group intelligence test to be developed were Army Alpha and Army Beta. These tests were used during the World War One for recruiting American soldiers. So group tests were first developed for uh, World War One. So let us see the features of group test. What are the qualities, characteristics of the group test? So group test could be multiple choice questions like you see nowadays the question paper of UPSC or any state public service commission or any railway exam or bank probationary officer exams. So multiple choice questions. So this ensured uniformity and objectivity in scoring. Quick and objective machine scoring is also like OMR sheet is given, so the scoring is very easy because it is done with the computer. It eliminates the chances of examiner's error and halo effect that may occur in scoring individual tests. So here, like you can give the question paper to 1,000 people, and then uh, they have to answer on OMR sheet, and OMR sheet can be easily scanned and given answer. You will get answer through the computer. Then group administration is the like role of examiner is minimal. Like so that's why you see the in UPSC exam or any exam, the invigilators are not a very expert in those things, but they were just observing that the candidates are not cheating or if they need anything. The role of examiner is minimal, having no scope for one-to-one interaction. Control of item difficulty. There is no provision of starting and discontinuation rules are there, and application screening versus diagnosis and remedial planning. These tests are commonly used for screening the subjects for a particular course or a job. In a very large standardization sample, the group tests are standardized on a very large samples compared to individual tests. So these are the three quality control of item difficulty. So you can decide the difficulty level of the item application. So like you want to screen or you want to diagnose or you want it to use it in for the remedial planning and very large standardized sample is there for this test. Let us see what are the advantages of group testing. So group tests are designed primarily for mass testing. In group testing, examiner's role is simplified and scoring is more objective and simpler. It is easier to obtain large amount of data with group tests. So suppose a company wants to hire 1,000 people, and can you imagine if they conduct interview for 1,000 people, or if they conduct individual test with 1,000 people, it will be very difficult. So they may administer group test. They will come. Suppose 1 lakh candidates applied, so they will give them some questionnaire based on intelligence tests or some other reasoning abilities or general information or general knowledge, arithmetic abilities, language. So on that basis, they will give them test and they will find out top 1,000 candidates for their job. So that way they can decide, and it's very easy, like a 2 hours or 3 hours test will give them can without spending much time. But there are disadvantages of the group testing also. The examiner has less opportunity to establish rapport with the examinees. So if you administer any psychological test without establishing rapport, you may not get the actual result. You may not get the true finding, because this is the precondition, prerequisite of all psychological tests. Like the rapport must be established before administration of the test. So in group test, generally this rapport is missing, and so the findings may be different. The group testing lacks flexibility. Like in an individual setup, when a trained clinician administers test, there is so much flexibility considering the client's mindset. For example, if the client is anxious, the psychologist can first relax him, establish rapport, then can administer. In group testing, nothing can happen like that. Then invalid scores are difficult to be recognized, whereas in individual setup, this can be easily pointed out. So basically, in group tests are more suitable to industrial setup and in a school setup, and individual tests are more suitable for clinical setup as well as school setup. Examples of group intelligence tests. Let us see what are the in group intelligence tests available. So multidimensional aptitude battery (MAB). So multidimensional aptitude battery given by Jackson 1984. It is a paper pencil equivalent of the base R and verbal part, and it consists of 10 subtests. 5 is from verbal and performance categories, and items are arranged in order of increasing difficulties. Like initial items are simple and later on items were difficult. It is appropriate for people of 16 to 74 years of age. Then cognitive ability tests, COG-A, given by Lohmann and Hagen 2001, and used to assess the basic skills that are prerequisite to classroom-based learning. It measures students' learned reasoning and problem-solving skills in 3 different areas: verbal, quantitative, and non-verbal. And it is a multi-level battery consisting of a series of overlapping tests, and this test has good reliability and validity. So it assesses a broad range of cognitive abilities of the uh, person. Another one is culture fair intelligence test. So, are non-verbal measures of fluid intelligence designed to measure analytical and abstract reasoning ability. Why this culture fair test was developed? It is developed by Qatar, and it was found that in the UK, it was found that those who were from Asian countries, Russia, and other deprived countries, they were having less IQ. So it means ki the items of the tests were not suitable for that. It was found out that. So there was a demand for the culture free test. There should not be impact of any type of culture on the psychological test. So initially this test was called culture free test. But then it came to know that it is not possible for any test to become culture free, because there might be some impact, direct or indirect influence of culture on that test. So that's why the name was changed and it was called culture fair intelligence test. So there are three scales in the test. Scale 1 for intellectual disabled adults and children from 4 to 8 years of age. The scale 2 can be used for adults with average intelligence and children aged 8 to 13. And whereas scale 3 is used for high school and college students and adults with superior ability or having good intellectual functioning. Let us see the Raven's progressive matrices. It is called RPM, and there are three types of this test. So it is a non-verbal test of uh, inductive reasoning, or originally designed to measure Spearman's G factor. We have discussed in our theory classes about Spearman's S factor and G factor. The test contains figures presented in a matrix form. That is, for example, uh, like they are arranged in a pattern with row and columns. Like there are six block designs, and then on the top one design is there, and one part of that design is missing, and the missing part of that design is there in six design similar to that, and one of the design is exactly same as the missing part. So the client has to find out which part out of the six will be more suitably fit in this design one or bigger design. So this is the so so this is like a test of reasoning. So this test there are three types of Raven's progressive matrices. One is called colored progressive matrices for 5 to 11 years of all children. There are 36 items, 12, 12, 12, three types of set, three sets with 12, 12 items. And like set 1 is more easier than set 2, set 2 is little easier than set 3. But candidate has to do all these 36 design and find out the correct missing part of that design. And these matrices are colored, colorful. So the children, they found it, children and adolescents, they found it very interesting. And in most of the child guidance clinic, this test is used to, because the children, they found it very interesting, and it helps the clinician to establish rapport easily with the child. Another type of Raven's progressive matrices is called standard progressive matrices, 1996, for individual between age of 6 to 80 years. And there are in standard progressive matrices, there are five sets of 12, 12, 12 items, so total 60 items, and these are not colorful items. And as I told you, the set 5 is more difficult, most difficult one, and set 1 is less difficult one. So as you go ahead, the designs becomes more complicated and it will become difficult to find out the correct. So it needs lots of reasoning and intelligence. There is another type of Raven's progressive matrices called advanced progressive matrices for adults and adolescents with superior intelligence. So the test can be administered individually or in group, but it is better to use this test in a individual setup. So this standard progressive matrices and advanced progressive matrices, they are more or less same in number, but the difficulty level is different. So if you see the um, progressive matrices set, color progressive matrices set 3 will be then SPM set 1 is more difficult than set 3 of color progressive matrices. Same way, this advanced progressive matrices for adult and adolescent is most difficult. Only those who are having superior intelligence, they can answer these questions. So this Raven's progressive matrix is very much used in child guidance clinic, as I told you. Now let us see the verbal and non-verbal tests of intelligence. A verbal test requires language for successful performance, and the problem requires the ability to analyze verbal information and language-based reasoning like verbal analogies. Whereas in non-verbal tests, they tap the ability to analyze visual information and solve problems without necessarily using words. The task may involve the ability to recognize visual sequences, understand and recognize the relationship between visual concepts and situations, as well as perform visual analysis. So, verbal test is like you have to ask the questions. For example, in Wechsler's intelligence, in Wechsler's adult intelligence scale, there are verbal items like who is the prime minister of this country, tell me the name of the five rivers, when the Independence Day is celebrated, what is the distance between road distance between Delhi and Bombay, what is the Mool Mantra of Gita, uh, so such type of words. So the subject has to answer in language. So, but there are some disadvantages. If the subject is having some language problem, or the like in our country, there are multi-linguistic people are there, or the different states are having different languages. Even after every 50 kilometers of the distance, you will find that the language is same Hindi, but the dialect is totally different. So this is the demerit of verbal test in our country. Whereas in Western countries, if the language is same, one only, for example, English or Spanish or German, so there is no such problem. But in our country, due to varieties of language, varieties of dialect, it's very difficult to develop a uniform language test for our country, because the language test must be there in the local language. So if you want to develop an IQ test for verbal IQ test for India, it must be there in more than 30 languages at least. So it's a big and hectic job. But whereas in non-verbal test, it's very simple because the client has to manipulate the cubes or the things or visual concepts. But both the tests are having their positive and negative. Let us see the culture fair test. So critics have highlighted that intelligence tests are biased towards the majority group in the society. This is due to cultural differences. As I told you, like the test developed in UK may not be suitable for Russians, may not be suitable for Africans or Asians. So Goddard started assessing intelligence of immigrants of Ellis Islands in 1910, and he noted that the immigrants from Hungary or Israel, Italy, Russia were having low IQs, and their low IQs were due to environmental deprivation. So it's not that they are moron. Like if you see, this is very interesting. Like if you are practicing in Delhi, uh, and if you have to assess a child's IQ, who came from the Bihar or Bengal's rural remote village. So you will find your items, verbal as well as performance items, were not very suitable for the child. The child will not perform because the child has seen such thing first time in his or her life. So that's why let the child first familiar with the environment, then only start with such test. Whereas if you administer this test on children who are studying in Delhi's school or NCR's in a public school, so in their like nursery classes or pre-prep classes, initial class 1 or 2, they were used to play with such type of items which are used in intelligence battery. So they are very much familiar with those things and they don't find any problem while the test is administered. So they perform well than the village students. But if it is related to the subject matter, so sometimes the rural people they perform better. So usually cultures vary along the following parameters. One is language, like different culture groups speak different language. Even in one culture, if there are 2 3 groups, those they speak same language with different dialects. Like in Hindi, it is spoken in Bihar, Bengal, Uttar Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Delhi, Haryana, Punjab, Jammu Kashmir, and you will and Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh. So you will find the different in dialects. Though it is Hindi, but it's spoken differently. Even though some of the words are different. So if suppose if you have developed a taste of intelligence, verbal intelligence in Delhi, so it may not be very suitable for the other people, those who belong to other states. So that's why culture fair test was required because different culture groups speak different languages, reading experience. Then cultures are different with respect to their educational background. As I told you, the educational system of CBSE, then ICSE, or the unrecognized schools or schools in villages have totally different way of reading. So they pronounce the word differently. Then speed, the tempo of daily life, motivation to hurry, and the value attached to speed of performance vary widely in cultures. So, like in some cultures, they do the task in a relaxed manner, whereas in some culture they do the task very fast. So if the test is speed test, limit that you have to perform the task within the limited time, say for example within a minute or within 2 minutes. So if you belong to that culture where the things are done hurriedly, you may do it fast. But if you belong to the culture where the things are done in a relaxed manner, slowly, so you may fail on that task, whether you cannot complete the task within that time limit. Then environmental experiences. People of different cultures experience different natural and social phenomena. So the environment is different in our country, like different parts, different types of things are there. So people are uh, reacting in a different manner. So that's why, if the test is like that, where the effect of language, effect of reading experiences, effect of speed, effect of environmental experiences doesn't play much role, doesn't affect the test, so it becomes culture fair test. So let us see what are the culture fair tests. So the culture fair tests are basically non-verbal tests given by Cattell. Another one is Raven's progressive matrices. We have discussed. It is a non-verbal test and it has three sets, like CPM, colored progressive matrices, SPM, standard progressive matrices, and advanced progressive matrices. The later International Performance Scale revised. It's given by Roy and Miller in 1997, and this test covers four domains of functions, namely reasoning, visualization, attention, and memory. So then there is another test called Draw a Man test, developed by Good Enough in 1926, and its revised version, the Good Enough Harris drawing test. Harris given it in 1963. Credit is given for inclusion of body parts, clothing, proportion, and perspective, etc. But again, though it is called culture fair, but it must be developed in a particular culture, keeping the way people use drawing and other things. So now let us see the what are the issues in intelligence testing. So one of the biggest issue is mislabeling of a child based on a score. Sometimes, like the assessor or the examiner or the psychologist, they forget about the other aspect of the child. They just focus on the score and label the child on the basis of that score. So when you get the IQ score, you have to see the child's performance in day-to-day activity and corroborate with that. If it is not matching, then look into what are the factors which affected the performance of the test, or the reports may not be true as given by the parents. So there must be a discrepancy to be looked out. And so there is a high possibility that if the test is done by non-trained person, the person is not very much ex, having expertise in assessment of intelligence test on various types of population, there is a high possibility of mislabeling. Like the child might be having average IQ, but you may label it as a below average or borderline IQ. It is pointed out that IQ test to measure factor other than intelligence, like environmental factors such as quality of education. Yes, there are some impacts seen on the quality of education on the IQ test. Intelligence is not limited to IQ alone. There is an argument, yes, and this is too much, and this is to some extent true also. Success in life depends on several other aspects, such as creativity, social competence, practical problem solving abilities, etc. But we remember that IQ doesn't give you guarantee that you will be successful in your life, but definitely it will help you in academic activities. So, if for success, for becoming successful in the life, you need emotional intelligence also too. So, most of the intelligence are culture biased. Yes, so the test should be culturally develop, then only it should be used. So, like in India, if we are using foreign test, there must be Indian norms, or we should use our Indian tests. So we have Indian norms for various foreign tests. For example, Sagan form board test, uh, Vineland social maturity scale, WISC, WACE, BKT, and we have Bhatia batteries. So we are comfortable to some extent that we have certain tests, or we have norms for certain Indian norms for certain tests, so it can be used for our population. So most of the Indian tests are culture biased. So if you are using another culture's test in our country and our population, you must be very careful. And intelligence testing for infants and preschoolers has also been questioned for its sensitivity, accuracy, and predictive value. Now we are going to discuss about aptitude, concepts, and measurements. So in this, we'll discuss about the definition, nature of aptitude and related concepts, measurement of aptitude, advantage and limitation of aptitude tests. So what is the objective of this unit? So you will understand and able to define what is aptitude. You will know the characteristic features of aptitude. You will differentiate aptitude from intelligence, achievement, and interest, and some of the widely used aptitude tests, and describe the usage, advantage, and limitation of aptitude tests. It was soon felt that intelligence tests were not giving adequate information about the individual's ability. It's true to some extent. Psychologists gradually came to realize that the term intelligence test was a misnomer. For instance, two individuals may have the same IQ and yet have different abilities, different achievement, and different interests. Aptitude can be understood as an ability to acquire a specific type of skill or knowledge. So let us define the aptitude. The word aptitude is derived from the word aptos, which means fitted for, suitable, etc. So aptitude is a condition, a quality, or a set of qualities which is indicative of the probable extent to which an individual may be able to acquire, under suitable training, some knowledge, understanding, or skills. So it is a symptomatic or indicative of one's potentialities. It is the result of interaction of nature and nurture, same as intelligence. And the concept of aptitude is very broad, including learning, intelligence, achievement, personality, interests, and skills. Aptitude predicts future ability. It means if you have administered aptitude test, so you can say that if the person is, on the basis of finding the person is suitable for a particular type of job, or the person has particular potential or ability. So let us see the what are the other concepts. One concept we have just now discussed is intelligence. So let us see the what is the difference. So in intelligence, general mental ability cutting across different types of tasks, whereas in aptitude, a specific ability of an individual. For example, the child may have mathematical aptitude or may not have mathematical aptitude. So, if the parents want to make the child engineer, it will be very difficult for the child because the child lacks mathematical aptitude. It has a IQ intelligence, it has a broader scope, whereas aptitude it has a defined and narrow scope. Intelligence indicates the present ability, whereas aptitude has future orientation as it indicates the potential for learning. Intelligence, the existing capability of the person can predict his or her success in different areas, not in a particular area. Whereas aptitude is the capability of the person that can achieve with training. So capability, the person may undergo for some training and may become capable. So intelligence tests are more likely to be used for educational, clinical, and research purposes, whereas aptitude tests are designed and used for career and employment decisions. So the purpose of administration of both the tests are different. If you want to employ some personnel for particular job, you have to use aptitude test rather than intelligence test. Let us see the difference between aptitude and achievement. So aptitude is what the person can do, not what he has done. Whereas achievement is what a person has already done. So if you have achieved something, so it becomes achievement. So aptitude test measure the ability to learn, whereas achievement test, on the other hand, assess the existing learning status of the person. Apti- Aptitude is future oriented, whereas achievement is past oriented. Already done it, already you have achieved. So aptitude tests are administered before training is given. Achievement tests are given after training is given. So this is the difference. Then aptitude tests are evaluated in terms of predictive validity, prediction of person's success in a particular area, whereas achievement tests are evaluated in terms of content validity, mastering the content by a person. So now let us see what is the difference between aptitude and interest. So aptitude refers to what the individual can do, whereas interest reflects the things that one likes to do. I want to become doctor, I want to become engineer, I want to become artist. So these are the interests. I want to become cricket player. These are the interests. But the person, the child may or may not have such aptitude. So if the child have interest of becoming cricketer but does not have aptitude, it will be a difficulty for the child to become cricketer. So aptitude do not change over time, whereas interest may change over time with change in the knowledge and experience of the person. Aptitude is innate, interest are acquired. Aptitude depends on both nature and nurture, whereas interests are influences by a number of factors like family, peer group, parental influence, media influence, etc. So earlier you may find that before 10th the child was having interest in certain things. After passing 12th the child may have interest in different other subjects. So let us see how the aptitude can be measured. So with the use of factor analysis, a number of researchers opine that intelligence is not a unitary construct. We know that examples of aptitude tests are like multiple aptitude test battery. It is called differential aptitude test, the most widely used test in the industrial psychology. Then multidimensional aptitude battery, general aptitude test battery, armed services vocational aptitude battery. There are tests which is measuring a specific aptitude and test predicting academic success in college, like scholastic assessment test, graduate record exam, Miller analogies test, and professional school test. Let us see the differential aptitude test. That the differential aptitude test is developed by Bennett, Shisha, and Westman. It was first published in 1947. It is now available in its fifth edition since 1992. The fifth edition of the battery has been designed for use in educational and career counseling for students in grade 7th through 12th. The DAT consists of 8 independent tests: verbal reasoning, numerical reasoning, abstract reasoning, perceptual, clerical speed and accuracy, mechanical reasoning, space relation, spelling, language usage. The test has been adapted under Indian condition in Hindi by J.M. Oza in 1965. Multidimensional aptitude battery developed by Jackson. It is a paper and pencil equivalent of VESA. It includes 10 subtests, 5 verbal and 5 performance scales to yield verbal performance and full scale IQ. It is suitable for adolescents and adults. However, the test is not suitable for persons with below average intelligence or intellectual disability. And the raw scores on each of the multidimensional aptitude battery subtests are converted to scaled scores. So 10 subtests are as follows. Verbal are information, comprehension, arithmetic, similarities, and vocabulary. And performance tests are digit symbol, picture symbol, spatial relation, picture arrangement, and object assembly. So all it is based on, you can say, the Wessels test. General aptitude test battery. It is a multiple aptitude test battery that is used to predict job performances in 100 specific occupations. It is based on factor analysis of 59 tests. Occupational test patterns have been obtained from test results of vast number of employees in different occupations, which serves as norm for the tests. The test consists of 12 tests, subtests, 8 paper and pencil tests, and 4 apparatus measures that yield 9 factors such as general learning ability called G, verbal aptitude V, numerical aptitude N, spatial aptitude S, form perception P, clerical perception Q, motor coordination K, finger dexterity F, manual dexterity M. Another test is Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery. It is designed for screening and recruiting the personnel and placing them in different jobs and training programs in the US Army. Composite scores are computed from the subtest scores. The norm is based on representative sample of 12,000 persons in 16 to 23 years of age. A computerized version of the ASVAB is also available. So subtests in the current versions are arithmetic, reasoning, mathematics, paragraph comprehension, word knowledge, coding, general science, numerical, electronics, mechanical, auto and shop information. 8 are power tests and 2 operations and coding speed are speed tests. Test measuring specific aptitude, distinguished mechanical aptitude test, Thurston examination in clerical work, Minnesota mechanical assembly test, Minnesota spatial relations test, and they are used in employment procedures. So Minnesota paper foam board, Johnson O'Connor's Wiki blocks, Sharma mechanical aptitude test battery, general clerical aptitude test, graphic art test, and musical aptitude test. These are basically assessing specific aptitude of the person. Scholastic assessment test. It was first published by the College Board in 1926. It is used for admission into various colleges. The test is continuously revised and updated. The SAT, with its two parts, SAT 1 and SAT 2, assesses reasoning skills and mastery in high school subjects matter. The scores are anchored to the scores of the standard reference group, which has a mean of 500 and a standard deviation of 100. GRE. The graduate record examination is a multiple choice and essay test. It is used for admission into graduate program in many fields. The test measures verbal, quantitative, and analytical writing aptitude. The scores obtained in the verbal and quantitative sessions are expressed, and the analytical writing is rated on a 6-point scale. The GRE norms are widely among institutions and among subject fields. So like that, there are various tests, Miller analysis tests, professional school test. So what is the use of this test? So generally it is used for career counseling, clinical services, personnel selection, and on the job training and screening for admission and curricular planning. So there are some advantage and limitations of this test, as we have seen in intelligence test. Uh, so anxiety generally affects the performance of this test. Thank you.